Hello guys, Nigel here, thanks for tuning in, and we've got part 9 now of the Roden C-141 build in 144 scale. It's all 1s and 4s today. Right, I'll start by saying thanks to all my subscribers, and people are still subscribing, and it's great, thank you very much. I'm just going to say again, if you are still paying on Patreon, can you please cancel your subscription? I'm now accepting payments, or donations should I say, as per the link below. If you look down on PayPal, and I've set up a separate PayPal account, so anybody that wants to pledge any money to the channel, as a couple of you have already, you can pay the money in there, and that money will be set aside and go with the money that I got from Patreon to get a camera. As I said, $700 or $700 odd dollars in there now, in that account. So basically that money will go into the other bank account I've got separately for the purchase of a camera. And I intend to take a drive down to Bristol sometime soon, go into Jessop's and have a talk to those guys about where I should be looking at. So where are I with this one? I have done a little bit off camera, I have to be honest, because basically some of the work I've done, I've had to do under a magnifier, which is now impossible to film. So what have I done? This wasn't done under a magnifier. If you remember, I sprayed the landing gear black around these areas. I've now sprayed some metal coat paint on there. I actually used Vallejo chrome, so it probably won't dry, but we'll see. Oh, it has dried actually. It's the other one that didn't dry, the aluminium, which I threw away. So there's the nose gear there, you can see. So they're all painted up now, so I can mask them and then paint the gear white. So that's them done. There's some massive ejector pin marks in the back of the main gear doors, which I've had to fill. These I'm not worried about because these go sort of flat underneath the belly, much like that. They sort of sit in there flat underneath the belly pretty much. So so that's okay. We've now got to assemble these actuator arms with the landing lights into these doors. Something that is a bit weird is the landing lights are obviously, they've made 2 sprues which are the same, and the landing lights have to go in there. So basically when you put them in, you're going to have one front and one facing back, but they've kind of moulded them so they look the same on both sides. So I don't know if I'll do anything with that. I might put some Mr. Surfacer on the back of them just to dome the back on, get rid of the lens shape on there. This little thing here, I don't know what it is, it's some sort of antenna, goes on the front of the tail there. So what I've done is I've actually made that from a needle, and I'm going to show you what I've been up to here. All you do is take a sewing needle of roughly the right diameter, like so. Okay, and what I've done is I've just filed the end off it so it's not sharp anymore, and then cut it off to the right length, measure the diameter, drill a hole, in this case is 0.85, and then I can just push this in there like so, and that will sit there, and I can align it, get some super glue in there, and that's not going to snap or have mold seams to get rid of like you have on that one. So that's going to go in a little bit further. Now I did put some glue in there after I drilled it out, so I need to just put a drill down there again to clear that out a bit. So that's that little antenna on the back. I know it's not a pitot tube because here are the pitot tubes, and you can see what I've done here. If I can get this close up on the camera, what I've done there is drilled them out and then put a piece of 0.3 rod in there, and then I've drilled the fuselage so that these will actually go in. Find the hole. They will actually go in like so once they're cut off their sprues, and then they'll be a little bit stronger, and like they'll obviously, if you hit them they're going to snap off, but if you tap them they won't break off. But this side had no location whatsoever, and this side had some tiny little dimples, and there were some tiny little pins on there. So, and I've done the same, there's this antenna that goes on the back here, I've done the same on there, put a metal rod on, and then that will sit in there nicely like so. So we'll get those on, I think, just before we do finish painting. I'll check first to see there's no decals going on them, because obviously if you put a decal in that area, it's probably best to put the antenna on afterwards. So that's those done. And if you remember when we went back to the first part of this build, one of the first things I did was cut these antennae off, and I marked on the instructions the length they have to go to. And if you remember, I also numbered the antenna. Well, there they are. They're all still in their bag, and I've done the same on these. I've put a little piece of 0.3 wire on them, or 0.3 rod, and then so they'll have something to go in on as well. So what we need to do now is mark off the positions they're going to go on. So what I'm going to do is take a steel block here. So I've got a steel block there with the nose up against it. Now the first one, get my pencil, the first one was 49 millimeters. In fact, I think it would be easier to do it this way round. So the first one was 49 millimeters back. So that's there. The next one was 66. So that's there. Obviously, if they're somewhere in the right place, I doubt if Roden have got them absolutely perfectly in the right spot. This next one was 101. And then the last one was 152. Well, this rule only goes up to 150, so I have to guesstimate the 152, which is about there. Okay, so they're all marked off now. And there we go. Now I've got to find the centre line and drill them. Now finding the centre line is not going to be easy because I've done such a good job of getting rid of it. Yes, I am blowing my own trumpet there. So what I'll do is probably use a piece of tape and try and get a straight line or something going down there. I mean, this one will be easy because it's on the centre line there. This one shouldn't be too bad either, so it's there. And then, yeah, for this one, these two, I'll need a piece of tape, I think. Or I could actually just use a rule, perhaps. And go. So it's easy to see the centre there, and it's easy to see the centre there on the tail. So there. Where was that other one? I've lost it. There it is. This is the trouble with using a pencil. When you've got overhead lights, in certain lights it disappears. So something to be aware of. Yeah, that's not correct. That's over to the right too much. Let's get rid of that. If I sandal the Mr. Surfacer off, or the primer off, I should be able to see the centre line, but I don't really want to do that. Kind of defeats the object, really. So there we go. That's more like it. In fact, I'll check my references. They may not have been on the centre anyway. A lot of these model manufacturers put them on the centre, but quite often they're offset to one side. So let me get these holes drilled, and then I'll come back and we'll test fit those in there. Right, so I've drilled all those holes out now, and I've drilled them out 0.4 actually, so they'll go in easily. The other reason is when you put them in, if you have like a 0.3 hole with a 0.3 pin, as you put it in, it'll just wipe the glue away. But if you've got a bigger hole, I know this is a phallic symbol, if you've got a bigger hole and you put the shaft in, as soon as the glue sees that hole, it'll capillary in, and you won't get a great big puddle around your part. Now, if you remember, I numbered these. If I could pick this up, you can see that's got a 1 on it, so I know which one's which. So that one's going to go in there, like so. Easier said than done. There we go. Then number 2 has got like an 11 on it, so that one's going to go in there. And then we've got 3, which has got 3 strikes, so that one will go in there. And then we've got this one here, which has got the 4 on it, so that one's going to go in there. And as you can see, what we've now got is our lovely antenna. That one needs to be bent a bit to allow it to come forward. So what I'm doing is just get it in the tweezers, like so. Whoops. Lucky that didn't go on the 4, I probably would have never seen it again. And what I want to do is just bend it forwards a touch, just like that. And there we go. So you can see now they're all sat there, and you can imagine having those in place all the time, it would have been a complete nightmare to do that seam, particularly this area here. You never would have been able to get in there and sand it. So that's why we take them off. And as I say, you put the brass wire in there, because now when I hit them, they don't come off. They might snap off if you really whack them, but if I just put them on with glue, if I as much as tap them, they would fall off, particularly if they were on with super glue. So so there we go. So I'll take those out now and put them back in their bag, and then when we're ready, after we've done all our priming and everything, then we can get them on, and we can fit that one and that antenna on the front there as well. So that's them all done. So now what I need to do is look at getting these landing gear doors on here. Got these little doors, these small ones here, which go under there. Okay, they're just going to glue basically to the side of the fuselage, and I guess then I'll have to paint them after I've painted the model, or try and somehow mask them. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But there we go. So I need to look at getting these undercarriage bays painted. I've also got some sanding work to do up here, because I put some Mr. Surfacer on there, on the landing gear bay, and that's not quite dry yet, so I'll have to let that dry and then rub that down. So I'll probably come back to this now. Well, it's going to be, let's get the dust out of those holes. It's going to be tomorrow for me. It's going to be a few seconds for you, and we'll get the landing gear doors and everything built up. Right, moving forward, I've done a little bit off camera, to be honest. I've painted the wheelbase, and I've painted the associated undercarriage parts and everything. The actual hydraulic part of the, you can see there, the hydraulic part of the undercarriage, the main gear, is masked. And what I've done there, I've got Tamiya masking tape, measured that, just cut it into strips. You can buy your jammy dog tape like this one. There's the blue one, and then there's the ordinary one there, and you can get all sorts of little packets, and you can get the Tamiya flexible tape, which is good for curved areas. But really, at the end of the day, best thing to do is just get a bit of Tamiya tape on your board and cut it into whatever size you want. So I want to talk about painting white. Now, as you can see, I've already done one coat of white, and when I did these doors, they look great. But now, as you can see, it dries and it thins out, and you can see the grey coming through. So if you want a really bold white, which I do with this, so that it really stands out against the grey, I want to get it a really good white colour. So you need to be sort of building it up in layers. Now, if any of you watch Phil Flory, or a member on his channel, whatever, you'll see that he loves to use white straight out the bottle and doesn't thin it at all. What I do, I don't stir it, I just shake it, okay? And then what you'll have in the bottom of the bottle, you'll still have some pigment, but what's on the top is kind of mixed up and a bit thinner than the actual paint. The growly you can hear is my dog underneath the underneath the bench playing with a ball. So I'm just going to pour some of this into the airbrush, like so. It's unusual to see me, you won't often see me using pouring paint out of a pot. So I'm just going to put that to one side and put the lid back on the pot. So we've now got a drop of paint in there, and we can have a look at it and see how thick it is. And it's sort of thicker than we would normally use, but it's there. So now we can just take this and we can spray our doors on the ends, give them a good coat, and make sure we get the angles around the edges of these, because just the edges are going to be seen. Same on this nose gear door, like so. Okay, so that's that done. Then we can do these legs, give them a good coat. The beauty of Tamiya paint is, as long as you don't puddle it, you can get a thick coat on it. It will always pull down nice and tight. So don't be worried about putting too much on. I'm afraid with white you need to be, you know, getting some paint on there. It's no good trying to pussyfoot around it, as they say. Am I allowed to say that, or is that offensive for some people? I'm sorry if it's offensive. Unfortunately, our government is reclassifying all the sensitive words, such as, oh my god, I'm going to say it, surrender. Oh. So there we go. So I'm just going to put some paint in here now, get it nice in there, nice good coat. Same in here, good coat in there, good coat in there. And I want to make sure I get those doors as well. And make sure we get the whole lot. And as you can see, I'm not going gentle, I'm getting it in there quite heavy, but not so heavy that it runs. There we go. Okay, so we can dry that back. Now, one of the issues of doing this, I didn't do the nose gear, did I? Let's get some more paint. One of the issues of doing this, with using the paint straight from the bottle, is you will often find you get a grainy finish. Now, that is sometimes desirable, say, I don't know, in the floor of a cockpit, where you want a bit of a grainy finish, I guess, to pick up the washes and stuff. But certainly on your stuff like this, your undercarriage bays and your gear and everything, you don't want a grainy finish at all. You want nice, smooth, because in reality these would have been like a gloss white, so we'll give them a gloss coat after. Let's see if we can have a quick blast over. So I have a trick I'm going to show you, just to guarantee you don't get any graininess. Just quickly go over these again. There we go, you can see on there we've got a bit of a grainy finish. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. I'm going to try and show you. I can't get it in the light. But there is a bit of a grainy finish there. So what I do, don't clean the airbrush out, just take some Mr. Colour levelling thinners, and I think for this it needs to be Mr. Colour levelling thinners because it's hot. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple of drops in there. Alright, and then just going to blow back so that it mixes up what's in there. So now what I've got is basically a white wash, if you like. So now I can spray this, I won't do that first, I can spray this on here, pretty heavy. Yeah, and what that'll do, it will sit on top of that paint and it'll bite into it and it'll settle it down and it'll smooth it out, and I'll show you that in a second. Just get some more in here. I'm very sparing Mr. Colour levelling thinners because it's not the cheapest, and I don't like to throw it away. And all we're doing is just getting a wet coat on there, just laying it on there, not touching it, just letting it sit. And what that'll do, it will level it out. Now if I can show you on here, got some bits and pieces in that paper. I'm not going to worry about it because you won't see much of these inside these drawers anyway, but you can see now that it's kind of leveled it out. Yeah, and you just let that dry, just leave that for 6 hours, whatever, let it dry, let it go hard, and that will dry really settled down and lovely. And there we go, guys. Now if I can try and get this in the camera, you will see this is after about half an hour. You get a lovely silky smooth finish. And the sharper eye amongst you would notice I've turned these doors around, I was painting the wrong side of them. So yeah, Well done, Nigel. So that's all done and ready to, I'll give that a gloss coat in a minute, I think, just to seal it all in. And then it'll take a wash nicely. And again, you can see with these undercarriage bays, they're all painted, they're all nice and white. And basically, they are ready for a gloss coat as well. This area around here, if you want to make a big fuss about it, would need a lot of work. But you can still see some of the seam in there and a bit of it on the back. You know, it's not going to be seen. The undercarriage bays are pretty rubbish anyway, so you know, it's not really much point in making too much fuss about it. If you do want to go to town with this kit, I would suggest getting the metallic details upgrade sets for it. They do undercarriage bays and bits for the engines and all the antenna and everything, so I would suggest getting that. So there we go, that's that done. Now we're ready. I actually had a glue mark here where I put that lightning strip on there. I had a glue mark, so I've had to sand that out after putting a bit of Mr. Surface in. That's why you can see that looks a bit of a mess there. And then basically what we've got to do now is just go over the whole thing, give it all a rub down, make sure all the plastic's smooth, get these undercarriage bays masked up, which obviously can't do for the next 12 hours because otherwise you just pull the paint off. And basically make sure it's all smooth, and then I think we'll look at getting a thin coat of primer on it. Not really sure yet what I'm going to use, because the trouble is this primer is pretty much the same colour. I'm going to be painting it in XF53, and as you can see they're very similar in colour, so I don't want to end up with any thin patches. So I'm not really quite sure what to do there. I may go over with a primer and then just go over with a very, very thin guide coat of a white or something, just to, I don't know, we'll see. I may do panel line shading, I don't know, it's sort of old school now. I may do black basing, I'm sort of thinking about it. So we'll see, but I'm just going to get some primer on it anyway and check all the seams, make sure everything's good. Especially around here and around here, it all looks pretty good. If again, I said just now about Flory, if you do follow Phil Flory, you will see that he's currently doing a build of a Sabre, and he's talking about all this shrinkage as well. I don't know if he's seen my video and it's sort of prompted him to think, oh, I better bring that one up as well, because it is a very, very important, one of the most important considerations to make when it comes to aircraft modelling is the seam work on the fuselage and the wings and the tailplanes, and quite often around the tail as well. And sometimes you can use it to your advantage, you know, like, I mean, with this, somebody has sent me a photograph, and in reality there is a rib along here with rivets in it, so I could easily have covered this up with a strip of plastic and said, you know, that's realistic, but in scale I don't think it would look right. And the other thing is, certainly for me anyway, that joint there is a pig. It's one of the worst I've ever dealt with on any model aircraft, because it's the fuselage shape doesn't match the wing shape, and the slots put the wing too high. So for me to have this built and with that, you know, totally seamless look there, anybody that's built this, who's, you know, if this ever goes into a show or anything, or someone sees it on display, they're going to know what a bitch this joint is, so they'll know that, you know, we've done a lot of work on that, and you guys certainly know we've done a lot of work on it, because it's sort of held this back for probably 2 weeks while I let it all settle and dry and everything. So there we go. So just going to let all this dry back now, and then we'll give it a gloss coat, and then we go from there. Okay, so we're going to give all these bits and pieces a gloss coat now, and then we'll have to leave it all to dry for 24 hours, and then we can start masking it up and getting the rest of it done. So just one thing with these Tamiya gloss paints, quite often what you find is you can't get the lid undone, and there's a couple of ways to do it. One is knock it on its top, and that will often crack it off so you can undo it. Another one is to run it under a hot tap. Be careful not to burn your fingers. Just run the hot water around the plastic cap, because basically what's happening is it's the paint gets around the edge here and it's sealing it around there, and it's just sticking it on. Some of it actually gets on the threads as well. It's one of the issues if you pour your paints into your airbrush. That's one of the problems. And it's also worth, when you have used your Tamiya paint, if you just give it a wipe before you put the lid back on, you won't get this issue. The other thing to do is you can buy the proper guns removal tool. But this I found, it's covered in dust, this I found in Tesco's. Tesco's is a British supermarket on the pound aisle, and it's basically for removing tops off of bottles, and it will fit, you know, all sorts of sizes, you know, as small or as large as you like. But what I find it's really handy for is if you have got a tight top, or you have, you know, dexterity issues, it's really handy for undoing the lids like that. But it's also, like I say, the biggest issue is the fact that paint's all got on there and it's all stuck. So what I find is you put it in the middle one and squeeze it like so, and it basically breaks the paint away, and then you can just undo it. So, you know, the Guns one I think is about £5 or £10 or whatever, and it's a really nice tool, but this is £1, and also this fits everything, and that just stays on the top of my bench on the on my future bottle up there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my clean pipette once again and take some of this AK high compatibility thinners, which is one of my favourite thinners. It's not quite as hot as the Mr. Colour Leveller thinners, but nonetheless it's still pretty hot. So I'm just going to take some of this here, and I'm going to go for about a 50-50 mix. Okay, and you can see the airbrush isn't perfectly cleaned out, and there's a reason for that. It's because why waste thinners or airbrush cleaner or whatever cleaning your airbrush out when you know you're going to come along, next colour is going to be the same as the one you've just used. So that's what I do. So we'll put the lid back on there nice and tight, and then we can just basically, I probably haven't got enough here, so I'm just going to basically, we'll start by doing these bits. Just going to basically lay some clear on just to seal it in. Make sure we get around the edges, and that'll just seal it in, ready for a wash. And then we'll do the same on the undercarriage legs. And the reason I'm using the Tamiya, sorry I didn't tell you that, it's Tamiya X22. It dries really hard, it shrinks back lovely, it's really, really good stuff. One of my favourite gloss coats is Alclad Aqua Gloss, but I find it kind of, for detailed areas like this, it's not so good as this one because it doesn't pull back as much. I'm going to have to get some more in the airbrush, so we'll get some more thinners. There we go. And also on the subject, guys, I've had an email from from Ed at Premium Hobbies, premiumhobbies.co.uk, and apparently you guys have been buying the sanders in your droves, even from America and Australia or something, I think he said, or New Zealand. And yeah, crazy. He said it's gone crazy. So I had a big thank you email off of him for that. So he was very grateful, and I'm grateful to you guys, because basically, hopefully, what will happen now is he will come along and give me some more stuff to promote. I love being given stuff, because I don't have a job, I don't earn any money, and it's good to get stuff for free. So just go in here and just get some gloss in there, get some in there. And what I think of it, yes, I would normally be doing this in a booth, but so you guys can see it on camera, I'm doing it not in the booth. And there we go. There we go, so that's all sealed in now, and then we can leave those like that, because that will dry down to a sort of satiny finish, because it will soak into the matte paint under it, and I haven't put loads on, so it will dry down to a nice satin finish that will take a wash beautifully. There we go, and we'll just put some more on here just to use it up. There we go, and we can just dry it off with the air. And there we go. Now then, leave those for a few minutes to dry, and then I'm going to unmask them. Right, so I'm going to unmask these now. With unmasking, it's best to do it before the paint is fully dried. If you sort of leave it 24, 48 hours, especially with gloss coats and stuff, you run the risk of when you unpeel it, you'll peel the paint off with it, because if this is your masking tape and this is your part, you've got to remember the clear coat has now formed a skin between the two. So when you pull the masking tape off, it's likely to peel away the paint that's next to it, or the clear coat, or whatever in this case. So I'm trying to find the end of the tape. So there it is. It's going to be easier said than done. There we go. Whoops. That was not supposed to happen. So we'll just put this back in the tweezers. And I'm only touching it in between the wheels, and then if I do leave any finger marks, they won't show. We've picked up a piece of fluff there. You sometimes wonder where this fluff comes from. I mean, I don't have hardly a hair in my head. I suppose it's the dog. There we go. So now you can see there's another piece of fluff there that we've picked up. You can see there that we've got a nicely masked, nicely gloss, nice gloss finish for the hydraulic arm there. And then we'll do the same on the main gear. Again, I'm only touching where the wheels will go. You can see that once again there we've got the nice finish. You can see the hydraulic part there. So let's just do this one. Oops. Lost my blue tack. There we go, come around this side. Oops, push it through again. There we go. So there we are, you can see now the undercarriage legs are all done. So we can leave all that now to dry, let that gloss coat go rock hard, and then we can look at painting in the landing lights. We can mask off the undercarriage bays and get everything all done. So I'm going to call that a day for part 9. I know it's been not very much in it, and it's probably not been very long, but I want to get a video out. We haven't had a video for a few days, but you can see now that we're really coming along, and all the seams and everything are done. And basically, I just want to get a video out there so that you don't think I've given up on this kit as well, like I do with most of my projects. But this one, I can assure you, I promise you 100% will be finished. So I say again, thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks for getting me up over the 5,000. We're up on the over 5,100 now, which is nice. Thank you to all those that have pledged money to me on Patreon, but as I say, if you haven't heard this before, please cancel. I'm not going to be using Patreon anymore, purely because of the costs, the fees and everything. It's nigh on 18-20% or something at the end of the day. You know, you give me £10, I get £8 of that. So I've now started using PayPal. I've put a link down below, so if you want to donate or support the channel at all the money's going towards a new camera, and then it'll go towards some better lighting after that. Then you know, you can pledge some money or donate some money on PayPal, as I've put the link down in the comments below. And basically, then if you pledge me £10 as a gift, I will get £10. If you do it as a normal payment, then I will get, you know, a percentage of it, but it's still more than you get with Patreon. So, frog in my throat there. So I'm going to let all this dry now for, I don't know, 24 hours, and then we'll come back and we'll start getting things masked up. So I'll see you all soon, guys. Bye for now.